Then how did you get into doing all the, the philanthropic charity stuff? Did that come naturally, or was that something that Def Jam facilitated? How did that happen?
No, it came naturally. People would look for me, and I would book these speaking engagements, and it was just great. They would just come looking for me, and I wouldn't get paid for these things. I would just show up. It wasn't like it was. Def Jam would pay for me to get there because I'd say, "Oh, these people want me to go here, and and I'm going to speak to the school, and there's teenage girls, and da 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 da." And while they could pay for transportation, some of them would, and if it was like out of a different city, some of them would take care of flight and hotel. But for the most part, Def Jam took care of me getting to these places. They paid for this kind of stuff. And then, I know you're going to get into the rest of the album, but it was kind of, and then, where Hang On Kid came behind it, because it was like that whole, well, let's just keep going. That's why I said it was, again, finding who Nikki D was. It was like, oh, we got a hit. This is what it is. You're going to be that girl that talks to all the teenage girls and blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget, I remember Chuck D saying to me one time, he's like, who are you? He said, who do you want to be? And who are you going to be? And he was like, that's what you got to figure out. Who are you? Who do you want to be? And that always stuck with me. But again, not understanding the business and needing to have a thing, a niche, you know what I mean? It was a little tough trying to work with people who didn't know what to really do with you. And then you not understanding you needed to have that. It was a little bit of a up and down kind of thing, in and out. So Hang On Kid came and, it was kind of like a part 2 to Daddy's Little Girl. You see, I grew up in the neighborhood as Daddy's Little Girl. I wore my dress. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like right behind that was like a sequel, if you will. And then you have songs like 18 and Loves to Go, and then you have Another Man Is Beat My Time, which today they probably done cancel me 18 times over. But, there's a lot of stuff on there. It's pretty raunchy, you got Up the Ante for the Panties, Wasted, P, but still all pretty much, if you will, in the same vein. It's that one little bad girl, not really bad, just kind of getting out there and hanging out and just living her life, what she thinks is good, what she thinks she is, getting out to the clubs and hanging out, and then really still just being that one girl trying to find who she is. So it kind of morphed into that.
So when did Chuck D ask you that question or give you that thing to ponder?
It was before even all that happened. It was before the single came out and everything, because I had Letting Off Steam had come out. And did you come to that party that we had at the time?
No, I'd have been a little young for that, but no. No.
My bad. So you know what? You're right. Torre was there. Torre from Rolling Stone. He wrote for Rolling Stone.
He's a little older than I am, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I know that I know. So I'm there. I'm with you now. But so we had a party release for the Def Jam Classics. Again, pushing Nikki D out there, Chuck D's there, Slick Rick's there, Ella, all of the Third Base, all of my brothers in hip hop, were there. So we did the Time Cafe back then, and that's when me and Chuck D had the conversation.
Okay.
So it was prior to the Letting Off Steam was the only thing that was out there. And it wasn't the Daddy's Little Girl. He was like, so who do you want to do? Who do you want to be? And Chuck is always very profound. So it was just like, it was like, well, why are you asking me that? Because I don't know at this point, but it wasn't like a mad thing. It was just like, damn. But then I was like, yeah, who do you want to be? You know what I mean? Like you had to really try to figure that out. So that's where all those little songs would come from. After a while, it was like, okay. But it was more of putting out that idea of this young woman who was really trying to figure out what was going on and who she was.
Okay. And then Daddy's Little Girl, produced by Sid Reynolds. And I was always Sid and B-Tone, The Death Wish.
Sid and B-Tone. I spoke to Sid probably 3 days ago. Like, I still speak to these people. And he actually produced a song for my son. So my son raps too. So he actually produced a song for him. And he does a lot of stuff. He does Little Dirk. He does all these other cats out there. So he does some stuff. He's got some platinum records on his belt right now.
Yeah, no, he's definitely one of those, I think, very underrated and underappreciated producers.
100%.
So that being said, how did you get connected with him after LA Posse, after,
because they were signed to the label, believe it or not. They were signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just kind of sitting there. That was Def Jam signing acts, you know, signing people. Oh, they got these hot beats. Oh, they got this one song. See, back then, one song would get you going. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, we want this one song. Now, today, it's like much different. Even after, let's say, Daddy's Little Girl, right? That whole era, that early 90s. Now you're getting into like the mid 90s going into 2000. So now it's more so about what else do you have? We got this one song, but what are we going to do after that? So I'll tell you where, just to go back a little bit, where the promotion got lost in Def Jam, Wes Johnson, who was our promotion guy back then. And Daddy's Little Girl was ready, right? So Lyor Cohen is now over at Def Jam. He's far than come from LA. He's at Rush Management. Now he's actually moving over to Def Jam because he was at Rush Management, because he must have met somebody from Houdini or Run DMC, or somebody was like, yo, I got to work with you guys. And that's how he wound up over there in New York. So he tells Russell's like, I want this song out now. I want Daddy's Little Girl out now. He was like, no, let's not put it out yet. The album's not ready. I was like, no, I want the song out now. No, the album's not ready. So Russell forces the hand and puts the song out. And then we put the album out 6 months later. So the whole disconnect. You understand? People don't come back twice for you when it comes to stuff like that. Fans go off. It's like, oh, this MC Light album is out. This Queen Latifah's album is out. Like, nope, the new Salt and Pepper's out. It's like, again, if I'd have known, I'd have been like, no, we're not going to put this out until the album is ready, because we had clearly, like, for the album at that time, we had about 250,000 orders in the South alone. One section of the country, one region of the country, we're already at 250,000 pre-orders in February for the album that didn't drop until September. So we had a big disconnect there, because Wes Johnson says, listen, you know, we didn't have that second single ready. We didn't have that album ready, and we lost the record. So we were #1 at Billboard for a few weeks, and it was like, great. But they lost it because we didn't have anything else behind it. So again, trying to figure out what to do, this whole label thing, how does it work? And Russell not wanting to lose anything, not understanding he would lose more, being anxious than, you know what I mean? The setup being proper. So yeah, that kind of jacked up the album sales. So that was a bit of an issue there. But, you know, I still, years later, was still touring and still doing shows and still doing other stuff and working with Flavor Unit, with Latifah and them. But, you know, it didn't go as great as I'd like to have gone initially.
Right. Well, you also worked with a lot of great producers on Daddy's Little Girl, with leaders of the new school. So how did that connection? Because was that through Rush Management as well?
No, you know, how we wound up in the studio together? How did I wind up with leaders of the new school? Because they were always all together. It was never just one. It was always Busta, Charlie Dingo, and Milo. They were always all together.
Cut Milo and Milo.
Yeah. We actually were in North Carolina. No, the album was out already. So they were in the studio working on their stuff. They were in the studio working on their stuff. And I met them. And we just clicked. Like back then, you could go into any room in the studio, whatever. Now it's like the door's locked. We don't know who's in there. Don't go there. Everybody's a superstar. Don't do that. Back then, it was like a dorm. You know what I mean? It was like a college dorm. Everybody could go, oh, who's in B? Oh, I'm going to go in there. Who's in C? Oh, Nikki D's in there. So, you know, we met in Chung King Studios. And that's when Chung King was down on Center Street, Manhattan. And I'm in there, did some tracks up. And Charlie was like, yo, I got tracks for you. And I was like, okay. And it's like, yo, we got hooks for you too. And I was like, oh, okay. Because the thing that I liked about the album is they brought that diversity for me. They brought that change, that upbeat kind of like party, that, you know, that wicked kind of like thing where nobody was really trying to do anything different. Everybody just wanted to be an MC and spit bars. So I love that they brought that energy to the album. And that's how we met. And those were actually, believe it or not, I would go and do shows. And while it was silence, you would hear the crowd going, Monday we'll be together, together. yeah, Monday. And I would be like, oh shit. I'd be like, we got to do that. So we would, I had TV tracks for everything. So I could just play whatever I wanted because I walked with my whole album all the time. TV tracks, always already ready for that. So people gravitated towards that stuff on the album. And then thereafter, I remember Leaders of the New School and Naughty by Nature and us having the same Naughty by Nature. Tretch is actually on Daddy's Little Girl. Naughty by Nature is they're on the hook. And Tretch is in the video too. But I remember we being in North Carolina somewhere and Leaders of the New School, they were just out there. They just kind of came out. And it was like, yo, we trying to get on. That they didn't have food. They didn't have nowhere to stay. They were just rolling. I was like, yo, y'all can just come with me. Made sure they ate. They rolled with us. I let Naughty by Nature get on stage and do OPP. Like, it was a lot of stuff that was going on back then that I was just kind of like, again, we all family, like, let's just all roll together. But Leaders of the New School, definitely family to this day. Like, love them. Love them.
Yeah. So what was Charlie Brown the one kind of quote unquote running the beats, or how did it work?
Yeah. He was doing the production. Okay. Charlie was doing the production. And Dinko too. Like, they kind of both together was, messing around, but Buster was Buster. You know what I mean? Like, Buster was right. One day we'll be together. That was Buster shit. And then Charlie Brown, like, all of them had a different, like, they were like, no, you should do it like this, or you should do it like that, and da. Like, even whatever I would write, they would bring their flavor to it. You know what I mean? Like, and they would write the hook, and I would come up with my verses, and then they would be like, nah, you should flip it like this. So they basically gave me their style for whatever I decided was the verse. So that I thought was super cool. You know what I mean? Like, I loved doing that. That was great working with them. It really, really was. Good energy.
Yeah. I enjoyed it thoroughly, obviously.
And Large Professor, I worked with him.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah, he's on that album. Large Professor did Your Man Is My Man.
Right.
And that's him on the hook. You need to learn how to share. Because your man is my man. I was like, when I listen to that album today, I'd be like, wow, you was just talking mad shit back then. Like, you just was really going in. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't have a problem with it, but it's just as funny.
No, it definitely was a very unusual album given the time, especially. And this was also in this era, we were starting to get a lot of the guest appearances or people rapping. So I was always curious with Hang On Kid, how you guys decided to have Sid on there at the third verse. Like, what was
Sid decided to have himself on there.
As the producer, he made that call?
Sid decided to have himself on there. And Sid is he's so laid back and so like cool and calm. So I was like, okay, we'll leave it there. You know what I mean? Like, it was a little bit it wasn't bad. I just felt like it was different for where I was at with things. And I was like, okay. Again, a lot of stuff happening. I would say the only thing that was cohesive was the idea of this girl just trying to have fun. But the music itself was kind of like over here, then it was over here. But overall, some really well-produced records.
I agree. And one conceptually that I always thought was one of the more interesting was Beauty Shop, because that was
Leaders.
Yeah, Leaders of New School as well. But it was also, I think, ahead of its time in a lot of ways of what we've seen happening today. So break down, why was that something as a writer you wanted to explore back in 1991?
Because girls were still fighting, like, even though it's more plastic surgery today, back then women were still having issues with what they already had, which was already their natural beauty. And then still within our race, if you will, a lot of colorism, a lot of things that would make people think that they needed to have more than what they had. And even though your face looks chopped, you need the beauty shop. Your face looks chopped, you need the beauty shop. But it was because you just wasn't happy with who you were. Like, you're okay, you're good. You know what I mean? But it was just, a lot of things just needed to be said back then. They still need to be said today. But I think we'll always kind of have that insecurity happening with women, just in general, because image is so big, and it's too bad, because a lot of people and a lot of women don't really appreciate who they are. Like, I'm clearly nobody's spring chicken, but even with all this stuff happening, even putting out a song or an album, there's no way I would ever touch anything. I just wouldn't, I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like, and people would loan that to being secure, but some of these people look completely different than they did when they were like, just came out 4 or 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago.
Or even 2 years ago.
Even 2 years ago. Like, I'm telling you, stuff will pop up and I'll be on YouTube and it'll be like, oh, people who you didn't think have plastic surgery. I'm nosy. Let's see, who is it? And I'll be like, wow, that isn't her nose. She did do that. Like, and even guys,
Yeah.
But Beauty Shop was definitely ahead of its time. I think Nikki D was ahead of her time, to be quite honest.
No, I agree. That's one of the many reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I always thought this album and a lot of what you talked about not only was unusual, but also ahead of its time and very big on social commentary in a way that not many artists did. And that being said, as a person at this time, as you're writing all this, because Letting Off Steam is so powerful, so forceful, so confident, but a lot of the album Daddy's Little Girl, these songs are exploring a lot of confusion and doubt and self-worth and self-issues and different things. So was that those were big issues for you, or you were just you were finding yourself and just seeing this stuff? What was happening?
No, I was exploring, not myself, more so other people. Because what I like to always tell people is I'm so grateful that my mom raised me with love. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people are raised to think, to figure it out. A lot of people are raised to where the parents are just check cutters, if you will, or check writers or bill payers. Every weekend I was in some kind of program, or I was somewhere dancing, or I was somewhere doing something that my mom thought I needed to do to enhance, very worldly growing up, like always wanted me to be in tune. I was in summer camp, out every summer. I was in the South with my family when I could. Like, my mother always made sure that I was full of culture and understood everything. And so I never look at myself like I was that girl who just didn't, feel like I needed to do other things, because I grew up with a lot of love around me, like all family. And I'm very grateful for that. I didn't grow up, in some crazy big house with anything I wanted. I went to school with those girls. When I went to California, when I lived in California, these girls were pulling up in drop tops and, getting out in Gucci bags at 16. I was like, where they do that at? You know what I mean? Like, that's cool. But then they were also catty and miserable and fighting all the time. You know what I mean? So I saw all of that stuff in high school. I was always the girl who was hanging out with the boys, tomboy. Like, I took wood shop and metal, and, I played softball, you know what I mean? And then I played tennis and I was swimming. Like, I was always doing all these things. So I was full, which I'm grateful for. And a lot of these, and I never really was the person who cared about, because I wasn't the drop dead gorgeous chick in school or any of that. So I wasn't worried that all the boys wasn't flocking over me. I was fine with who I was and who I am. So more so, just like the album was more so about what I saw, you know what I mean, coming up. And still today it's that way.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for
just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV Raps with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The history of gangster rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the street. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The history of gangster rap in stores now.